Commanders, this is Brightwood from Oracle Station, and we welcome you to the crew analysis for Kathryne Janeway in Star Trek Fleet Command. Kathryne Janeway was introduced into the game in June of 2023 in the arc Voyager Part 2. For those commanders who are familiar with the Star Trek universe, and especially with the Star Trek Voyager series, you're going to know exactly who Kathryne Janeway is. But who is Kathryne Janeway in Star Trek Fleet Command, the game? Well, let's dive into her crew analysis and find out. Kathryne Janeway is an epic officer. She is a member of the Voyager group. Her faction is Federation, and her division is Command. Kathryne Janeway receives full synergy from all Voyager officers, regardless of class. Very much like Picard. I really like this new synergy model that they've started in the game, with Picard receiving full synergy from any TNG officer. And it's very fitting that Janeway does the same, as this seems to align with the epicness of this officer. Her captain's ability is Red Alert, Raise Shields. When you take hull damage from a non-player hostile or armada, Kathryne Janeway increases your shield mitigation by 6% for 1 round cumulative. She will get a 7% bonus from any Voyager group officer on a bridge seat beside her. This is one ability to pay close attention to, and you will need to understand your target and how this ability is going to play with those target shots. Basically, every time you take hull damage from a shot from your target, she is going to divert this percent to your shields. It's quite possible, depending on the target and the number of shots, this ability may be very ineffective. We will have to do some testing on this to see just how she works against specific hostiles. But this is clearly a PVE captain's ability and is focused on hostiles and armadas specifically. Her officer ability is Bend the Rules. At the start of combat, Kathryne Janeway increases your isolated cascade damage by 10% against non-player hostiles and armadas. This is nice, and it's a flat increase to damage right to your target's hull, and currently no hostiles in the game have mitigation for isolated damage, so this could be very beneficial to commanders. This goes up to 50% at commander, so this is a significant increase to your damage output. Again, this is limited to hostiles and armadas, so it looks like Janeway is going to be a 100% PVE, player versus environment officer, and this does seem very fitting based on her character in the series. There is no restrictions for her to ship type, locking her into a specific target, making her more versatile outside of the triangle battles. When it comes to PVE targets, she is classified for armadas and hostiles specifically. Janeway's traits are Captain, Tactical, and Empathic. There are 3 ATAs that require the Captain's trait. One of these will adjust based on your operations brackets. Those ATAs are Crystal Contractor, which is a 2-day ATA, Emergency Evacuation. This is the one that will scale with your operations level, and First Contact. There are 6 that need the Tactical trait. 2 of them will scale with your operations. Armed Escort, this is one that scales. Boarding Party, Explore Galactic Barrier, Imperial Strategy, Methodical Ambush, Tactical Simulator, which also scales with your operations. And finally, there are 2 that use the Empathic trait. Double Agent Interrogation, and Form Trade Agreement. Out of these 11 ATAs, none of them have overlapping traits, so Janeway is not going to be a premium ATA officer. So her benefits as far as it comes with ATAs is really going to depend on the rewards and your gameplay focus. But just based on the number of ATAs and the lack of overlapping traits, I would rate Janeway's interest towards ATAs as low. So what are Janeway's advantages now that we know her dossier? She's not a triangle restricted officer, so her abilities work on any armada or hostile. She's going to generate 10% isolytic damage right at unlock. And the trigger for the isolytic is at the start of combat, so that means your first shot is going to see the rewards of that increase in isolytic damage. She receives full synergy from any Voyager group officer. And finally, her captain's ability is cumulative for 1 round. And this means that for every shot that gives us hull damage, she's going to increase the shield mitigation. Now, what are the disadvantages that Janeway has? First, we're required to take hull damage for her captain's ability to trigger. Diverting all damage to the shields will counter her cumulative feature, causing the ability not to activate again. This technically isn't an issue, it's more of an observation, but there really is no need for the cumulative nature on targets where you're actually sending all the damage directly to the shields after the first shot anyways. Her captain's ability only lasts for 1 round. That means you're going to have to take hull damage every round. And at lower tiers, she will need a synergy officer to really make an impact. So in the books, Kathryne Janeway looks like she's going to be a very beneficial officer for our ships. At lower levels, commanders may find it difficult to use Janeway in the captain's seat, especially if they don't have a synergy officer to pair her with. The reason for this is because you really want her captain's ability to move all of that damage into the shields, reducing the amount of damage that you take to your hull. And making use of that captain's ability to activate beyond the first shot that gives us hull damage is going to take some thought. It's very likely with some hostiles you will only see her activate after the first round each turn. This is not a bad thing, but it makes the cumulative increase a moot point. So it looks like for the best results with Janeway in the captain's seat is that we're going to need to only use her on hostiles that fire more than 1 shot per round. There are several variables that go into how well crew performs, such as research, ship type, and crew levels. Some of these suggestions I'll be making may not work for you. The intent is to get you thinking of how you would incorporate that crew into your crew builds. We have a lot of helpful people in our Discord that would be happy to help you further your crew questions. Click the link in the description and come join us or start a conversation with us in our Discord. While you're there, make sure you check out our crew combination section to get ideas or just to use as a starting point to making your own crew configurations. There's an easy to navigate menu that will take you right to the crew suggestions with the details on that crew to help you understand how and why they work. So what PVE activities do we think Janeway will be most valuable in? Well, based on her abilities description, she's going to work against any non-player hostile and armada. Focusing on those 2 types, we have a lot of potential target types we can use Janeway against. Looking at the PVE activities that are available to us, let's narrow down where we think Janeway will work best. She's definitely going to be useful in reputation and resource grinding. So there we have our FKR hostiles, probably a good place for her. Freebooters, Delta Quadrant hostiles like Species 8472 and the Hydrogen Hunters. It's very possible that with the Voyager crew group we could come up with a good crew build here. Swarm, Probably not, since we already have some really good crews for going up against Swarm. And what about capital system surveys? Thinking about this, most likely we won't want to use her on these, as they only fire one shot per round, and understanding her captain ability needs to take that hull damage to trigger. She's not going to be mitigating any kind of damage from those hostiles. And then we have our armadas. We have our solo armadas and our group armadas. There's definitely potential here, but we may actually have better crew options available than using Janeway against these armadas. So thinking about our PvE targets and knowing she's not triangle locked, let's put together some ideas for armadas and general hostile grinding. We already know at lower officer rank, if we want to use her in the captain's chair, we will probably need some synergy. And thankfully we have that with the Voyager group that we've been able to acquire over the couple of arcs. First, let's dive into armadas. We have two types of armadas to consider: solo and group armadas. There is a core, well-known armada setup that you can use if you have the officers, of course. We are always happy to provide you with suggestions and ideas in our Discord, so make sure that you come over, join, and ask questions so we can help you out. But this base armada crew will be our foundation for the first test using Janeway. This base crew is 5 of 11 as captain, 6 of 11, and Khan. And what we're going to do is replace Khan with Janeway. 5 of 11's officer ability is weaponry is irrelevant. 5 of 11 is going to increase the shield deflection and armor and dodge by 200% of the total health of all officers on the ship. And we are also going to get the loot boost from her officer's ability. Ultimately, we're running her for the loot boost capability that she has in her officer ability. This is going to help us increase the amount of loot that we get from the armadas, which makes her pretty valuable in any of our armada builds. 6 of 11's officer ability is defenses are irrelevant. When attacking an armada target, every time the ship hits the opponent with a weapon attack, 6 of 11 increases the accuracy, armor piercing, and shield piercing of the ship by 5% of the total of attack of all officers on the ship. And this is going to go up to 40% at commander. His synergy boost with 5 and the bump in damage he gives makes a great armada combo. And then Khan gives us savage tenacity, which is going to increase our critical chances by a percentage every time we take a hit from a defense platform or a weapon. And this is cumulative, going all the way up to 5% at commander. So in keeping the integrity of our armada loot setup, we replace Khan with Janeway. Janeway is going to do something for us that Khan definitely cannot. With Janeway's officer ability, she's going to increase every shot we take by 10% at base of isolytic damage. That bypasses all mitigation. This doesn't rely on getting critical hits or any special condition, and it will be increased by the qualifying isolytic modifiers as well. Let's compare 5-6 Khan on a uncommon 49 Armada to the same with 5-6 and Janeway. With the help of the amazing battle log parser at Spock's.club, we're able to take a look at these exact same armadas side by side. These are both 49 Federation Outpost group armadas that I actually happen to be able to run by myself. And the only difference between both of these is that we swapped out Khan for Janeway in the second run. And as you can see here, it wasn't actually more beneficial to run Janeway. Even though she's giving us that guaranteed isolytic damage, we still actually went 2 more rounds in the battle, and we took quite a bit more damage based upon the charts in the progress of the battle as well. So this is kind of an example of why maybe Janeway isn't perfect for Armadas, but we didn't put her in the captain seat yet either. This build could be an option for both solo and group Armadas, and if you have a lower tier con, Janeway could be a good alternative. Just remember to remove your crit damage boosting officers from below the deck and replace it with somebody who will boost your damage output like Mariner. But what about for Armadas where we're not worried about loot, or we're just not really worried about running a loot crew? We really want to focus on maybe damage or something like that. Well, let's see what happens if we put Janeway in the captain's chair. How about we try a full Voyager build? For this build, we will put Janeway in the chair, and beside her we will run the Doctor for mitigation and B'Elanna Torres for piercing. Alternatively, we could put Chakotay instead of B'Elanna to increase our critical chance. With this build, Janeway is going to give us her captain's ability that will increase our shield mitigation, and her officer ability is going to give us a % more of our isolic damage. The Doctor is going to bring his officer ability over my dead program, and when we take hull damage from a non-player, hostile, or armada, the Doctor is going to increase our armor, shield deflection, and dodge by 300% of health for 2 rounds, cumulative. This is going to go up to 2000% at Commander. Plus, he's going to give full synergy to Janeway, increasing the shield mitigation by another 7%. B'Elanna Torres' officer ability is me against the galaxy. When we take damage from a non-player hostile or armada, again, B'Elanna is going to increase our armor piercing, shield piercing, and accuracy by 250% of attack for 1 round. This is also cumulative, and it increases up to 1500% at Commander. So, like I said, alternatively, we could also run Chakotay, and his officer ability is Marquis Strike, and this is going to increase the critical hit chance of our ship by 8% for 2 rounds each time we score a hit versus an armada. This goes up to 30% at Commander. For this test run, I ran B'Elanna Torres instead of Chakotay. She's a rare officer, and there's a better chance for more commanders to have sourced her, but I think I would have preferred to use Chakotay. Check out his video here if you want to learn more about Chakotay and why I probably would have used him over B'Elanna Torres. As you can see, this build ran very well. We took almost no hull damage because every time we took a hull damage hit, Janeway mitigated any other hits that round. So out of 8 rounds, we had very little opportunity to get hull damage. Also, as you can see, this only allows for Janeway's captain's ability and the Doctor's officer ability to activate a single time per round. This basically eliminated the cumulative capability of both of these officers' abilities. And with the increased damage to shields, we could now use Rutherford below the deck to increase our shield strength. 5, 6, and Con are still king when it comes to damage. But if you're looking for survivability, Janeway, the Doctor, and B'Elanna Torres might be a good option for you. And in this section is where I think most of us are going to use Janeway, whether it's in the captain's chair or in the side seat as an officer. She will most likely be used in our hostile grinding activities over Armadas. With what we now understand about Janeway's abilities, especially at lower tiers, we definitely want to make sure she has synergy with other Voyager crew. This is going to boost her captain's ability. We're also going to want to make sure that we consider the following 3 components in our crew build. Mitigation. We want to make sure we can mitigate as much damage as we can to increase the number of hostiles we can defeat. Damage increase. Anything we can do to increase the amount of damage output, reducing the combat rounds and also the amount of damage we take. And then the hostile mitigation reduction. So let's modify one of our primary grinding crews and see if it removes the triangle dependency of having to swap one of our bridge seats between Talon and Chen. This build is going to be our PMC or PMT build, which has Pike and Morio, and then we swap between Chen for energy weapon hostiles or Talon for kinetic weapon hostiles. Kelvin Pike, his captain's ability teaching moments is going to increase the effectiveness of all officer abilities that trigger in combat by 40%. And his officer ability is advanced training. He's going to increase the ship XP earned by combat by 20%. At commander, this will go up to 60%. Morio, who brings her officer ability, No Fear. She's going to decrease the armor piercing, shield piercing, and accuracy of the hostile by 30%, reaching 70% at commander, and this is going to receive the buff from Kelvin Pike. And then we put Kathryne Janeway in the other seat. Pike is going to boost her ability based on his captain's ability as well. So with the synergy boost from Morio, he is going to boost Janeway's officer ability by 120%. We will, however, be losing the mitigation from our hostile damage that we would have seen from Chen or Talon. So let's put this crew on a G4 rare ship and go grind some interceptors and explorers. I think with my Coronar, this will be a perfect ship to test this out. To really enhance this setup, we can place some choice below the deck crew on our ship. Hugh for starters, then Mariner to boost the damage output. We could put Odo, if we have him, below the deck to increase our critical damage output as well. And depending on our officer bonus, we could also put maybe Badgie below the deck or some other choice crew that we may have. I'm not really surprised, and as you can see, we actually took more damage with Janeway in the officer's seat than we did with our traditional PMC crew. This is because we removed mitigation that we were getting from Chen. So this may not be the best option for us to use Janeway in hostile grinding. Still trying to use Janeway in the officer seat, what if we thought about maybe using the TNG setup with TNG Picard and TNG Beverly and then Janeway in the side seat? So Picard's captain ability is going to be Make It So. Jean-Luc Picard is going to increase the effectiveness of all officer abilities that trigger in combat by 20%. This ability receives the same synergy bonus from all TNG officers, regardless of class. So we're going to get a 100% boost from TNG Beverly, who will put in one of the officer seats. His officer ability is Engage. Jean-Luc Picard increases your critical hit damage by 5%. Picard's officer ability goes up to 25% at the level of commander. And then we have TNG Beverly Crusher, and her officer ability is Unshakable Moral Code. When fighting hostiles and armadas, Beverly Crusher is going to increase armor, shield deflection, and dodge by 150% of the defenses of our officers on the ship. So this is going to go up to 350% when she is at commander. And then of course we'll put Janeway in the side seat, who's going to give us the isolytic boost, and she's going to get a kicker as well from Picard with his synergy from Beverly Crusher. No surprise here, but when I ran this build, it performed pretty much exactly the same. As you can see, the Picard, Beverly, Janeway performed almost exactly the same as our Pike, Morio, Janeway build did. They literally took the same amount of hull damage,
and same amount of shield damage, and they lasted about the same amount of rounds, or actually the same amount of rounds. So we might be able to do better with other crew builds, but it doesn't look like Janeway's is going to really be that great in an officer seat. But what if we put Janeway in the captain's seat? And let's run an all Voyager crew build. For this build, we are going to obviously put Janeway in the captain's seat, pair her up with B'Elanna Torres on the side seat, and then put the Doctor on the other side seat. I really do love this crew combination, and if you have them, give them a try. It's very impressive on how well it does work, especially on hostiles that are level 52 and higher. As I said, I really enjoyed running this crew build and testing it. I ran it on my Vidar Talios and actually did better than my Strange New Worlds crew setup for hunting Borg probes. So this looks like I have a new crew for doing Borg probes. This crew also did very good on freebooters, allowing me to actually hit both same class and combat triangle hostiles. So this has kind of knocked my Tau build out of the top seat for when it comes to freebooters as well. It really does work well on non-triangle hostiles. Just keep in mind that you're still going to get negative impact if you go counter triangle. These are just a few options in how you can use Janeway to hunt hostiles. This is going to give you a great non-triangle based hostile crew that will work on pretty much any hostile grinding that you need to do. It may not perform better than some of the proven hostile grinding crews out there, but it may in some cases, and it is definitely going to be a very good alternative hostile grinding crew for you. Feel free to join us in our Discord to share any Janeway crew builds that you might be having fun using hunting hostiles or running against armadas. So how are we going to obtain Janeway? Well, sourcing has been added to the game for all Voyager crew with the release of Voyager Arc Part 4. This sourcing method is supposed to be through a refinery-style exchange that will contain several items to include the Voyager crew. This is supposed to be a permanent go-forward sourcing method for all of the Voyager crew that have been released into the game. So look for that refinery feature in-game during Arc 4, or if it's after the Arc, this sourcing method should already be available to you. So keep your eyes open for any store packs that might include Janeway, and also keep your eye out for events because she's sure to be included in some future ones as well. She's an amazing officer that I think you'll really enjoy adding to your crew. There are some key advantages to Janeway's. She is valuable at acquisition on day one. She works on both hostiles and armadas. Isolate damage increase or added to damage output up to 50% is kind of nice, because this goes right past the hostile shield mitigation. Her captain's ability is cumulative for each weapon per round. She's not triangle locked to any specific hostile, and you get full synergy bonus with any Voyager group officers. The key disadvantages to Janeway are with her synergy and the accumulation effect of her officer, or actually captain's ability. When she takes hull damage, she's going to mitigate all the damage to your shields, and because of that you're not going to take additional hull damage. Well, technically it's doing its job with the first hit, and you may see this accumulation actually happen with larger hostiles, but out of the box there really is no accumulation necessary. The other disadvantage is that her captain's ability is not effective on single shot round hostiles, like capital system traders. They only fire one shot per round, and because of that, she's not going to mitigate any additional damage. So you're better off running your regular capital trader farming crew builds instead of Kathryne Janeway. Kathryne Janeway is very versatile to being inserted into crew builds or is absolutely amazing with other Voyager crew. There really aren't a lot of disadvantages around Kathryne Janeway. Check out our website for more videos. And join us in Discord using the link in the video description to continue the discussion and get access to more resources. We hope you found the video informative and helpful. If so, please give us a thumbs up and share. We look forward to your comments and suggestions.
Live long and prosper, Commander. This is Brightwood from Oracle Station, signing off.